we have the buffalo for buffalo milk mozzarella, but the buffalo meat is also delicious, and I do like that. It's very lean and low in cholesterol. So, yeah, I guess it's just taking it a step further. But again, horses they've sort of moved into that pet friend to people category.
So in Italy, are a lot of people really eating horse meat? Like, are there restaurants that specialize in it, or would you potentially just see it as a dish on a menu, like one horse meat dish on, a more extensive menu?
I can't say that I've ever seen it on a menu or noticed it, let's say. I do see horse meat butchers in and around Rome, so it's not uncommon. They're not extremely common, but they're not uncommon at all. And, if I went to someone's house and they had horse meat, I wouldn't be shocked in any way. There are certain regions where it is very common. In Veneto and, northern Italy is an area.
And actually, doesn't that make sense because you're getting closer to, like, say, Switzerland, Austria, Germany, where I feel like they tend to eat a lot of meat. And Switzerland is where I lived for 2 years, and they did have, a fair amount of horse meat available. That makes some sense to me.
Yeah, but by contrast, two other places where it's extremely common to this day are the two big Italian islands, Sardinia and Sicily. It's very common.
When I was in Sicily back in, I think, 2018, I went to the grocery store with the friend that I was traveling with, and we just got, salumi and cheese and bread to have like a little really simple antipasti kind of meal back at the place we were staying. And they offered, and we bought some just because, I believe it was mortadella made from donkey.
Yeah, donkey's very common. It's sort of in that similar category. So you'll also find like sausage and other salumi that are made from both of them.
Yeah, that's interesting. But donkeys are sort of in the horse category, right?
Yeah. I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what it tastes like. I don't think it tasted all that different from regular mortadella. I just can't recall. I feel like the color was a little bit darker. It might have had just a little bit of a different flavor, but it wasn't wildly off, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And in the Veneto region, where we have Venice and everything in Padova, eating horse meat dates back to at least 1,000 years BC. So it's been around for a long time, though only now I see it's becoming kind of culturally not common. But, one of my favorite butchers in the Testaccio market, which is a real favorite and tourists love to go to, beware, because the butcher there is filled with horse meat.
Have you ever seen horse prosciutto? Is that something that they would make?
I can't say that I have, but I suppose. No, because bresaola, that's what that is. And
actually, yeah, you're right. Bresaola is air-dried beef and served like prosciutto, basically, right?
Exactly. And then during World War II, horse meat gained widespread acceptance, especially in the French cuisine, because people were hungry and other kinds of meat weren't that available. So butchers that specialized in horse meat became more prevalent, and I guess they've stayed so in France. I think the French tend to be more eating unusual things.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously they eat lots and lots of pate from different animals, so it would sort of make sense that they're a little bit more open.
I would be more likely to eat like a stewed horse meat dish than I would offal.
Oh, yes, agreed.
So I mentioned that it's common in baby foods, and I'll have to put a picture of little baby food jars with a horse on the jar. But, it is so much culture, and I think we eat a lot of fish, and I think in the United States too. But I know that Americans don't like to see the whole fish brought to the table and look at the fish head, whereas the Italian thing is that you like to see the fish head and kind of make a judgment on the fish freshness. So, I mean, it's so much what our culture is, no?
Yeah, a lot of it is what are we used to? What's accepted?
So, what's the most adventurous food you've ever eaten? I mean, because there are lots of like culturally acceptable in some countries, but not so much in ours.
So I ate some weird stuff in both Japan and Iceland. In Japan, I had, I don't know, some kind of innards of the chicken, which sounds like really weird. Basically, when I went to Japan, it was a work trip and it was this big food exploration trip. There were a lot of things that were being served to us. And let's put it this way, I didn't want to be the only one that was not eating them, so I ate everything. Cod seaman sushi.
Oh, no, thank you.
There's a really funny story about that, but that'll be for another time. But in Iceland...
No, share now.
No. In Iceland, I had a couple things that are very controversial, and I think even controversial in Iceland. I had whale sashimi, I had reindeer, and which I believe was a braised dish, and I had puffin, which is a little cute bird. And I had stinky shark, which is they eat this weird stuff called, colloquially, stinky shark, which is like a fermented shark meat. And I mean, I only tasted the smallest amount just because, again, it's considered an interesting delicacy. And, it basically tastes like ammonia. It's very strange.
Yeah, not a taste I would be wanting to experience. Well, you mentioned reindeer, and that reminds me of, actually, it was an American guy who lived many, many years in Tuscany, and he used to make his own prosciutto. And then he moved back to the States, where he still is, and he started making, according to him, really delicious and everyone loved his deer prosciutto.
He makes deer prosciutto here in the States?
Like these guys who are out here running around in the woods behind you. Yeah.
Venison prosciutto. Yeah, people eat venison. Venison's considered like a wild game, so it's not like, I don't think it has the taboo that if someone were eating horse. But it's still not as common. I actually just put a recipe on my website for a wild boar ragu. Again, it's not an everyday meat. It's something you have to get at a specialty butcher or order it through the mail. It's not necessarily taboo, though, because it's just like a wild animal out there. It's more just that it's unusual. So deer is one of those animals that people who hunt, they hunt deer. Like that's a common animal to eat, to hunt, and therefore venison. Although, yeah, it's not you don't have it a lot. I mean, every now and again, you'll find it on a fancy restaurant menu.
Yeah, I would eat that right away. And in fact, when you see it on a menu and it says venison, it kind of gives a different psychological slant than deer. Yes. Where you picture like Bambi scampering through the woods,
Makes sense.
So when we were in the Seychelles, we had, and my daughter kind of doesn't forgive me for this, although she ate it with great pleasure, I have to say. We had bat pate.
No, thank you. First of all, I am scared to death of ever encountering a bat in my life. So I do not think I could have bat pate. And that is one I have never heard of.
Okay, well, there are bats and there are bats. It's not the kind of little thing that you see in your rafters. These are bigger things. But yeah, it's a different thing. I mean, there are all kinds of incredible bats. I actually like them, but as a kid, I had like snakes and turtles and all kinds of weird things.
I did once have rattlesnake. It was on a date in college. It was before a big dance, and we went to some fancy highfalutin French restaurant, which was probably the first time I was ever at a restaurant like that. I think I was 20. And sure enough, there was rattlesnake on the menu, and I have no idea why I ordered it. I feel like maybe I shared it with my date. But yeah, I forgot about that until now. No idea I think it tasted like chicken.
Yeah, I think I would try that. I mean, because again, you don't ever think of a rattlesnake as a pet. There's that sort of a distance. I would be